Hey everyone, welcome back to Pushing Film, and today I just want to do a short video discussion about photography related podcasts. I want to ask, do you listen to podcasts? And I want to talk about a couple of my favorites and find out, what else is out there. Photography related podcasts can be a great source of information, inspiration, and even insight, especially when you can't be watching a video or while you're doing other tasks or commuting especially. So what I often do is while I'm working, especially doing something like setting up photo booths for weddings, and there's a lot of time spent setting up and sort of standing around waiting for things to happen, I have like a little Bluetooth earphone which I can just chuck in one ear and still be able to hear what's going on and do my work. And I'm not tethered to anything. So that's a really cool thing. When I was a kid, I used to imagine these things way off in the future, and now we have them, and this was like less than $10 on Amazon. So my number one favorite photography related podcast, and it's also very film photography related, is Photography Matters by Ted Vieira. Now, some of you guys may have heard of him or may already listen to it. Ted actually has a YouTube channel, and he stopped posting videos onto the YouTube channel because he's focusing a bit more on the podcast for the last year or so. He's really passionate about photography, and everything he talks about really genuine, and he's very real. So a lot of his podcasts are just discussions about any given subject, whatever's on his mind, and he's very dedicated, and he takes out a lot of his own personal time, I'm sure, to post. That's one of the reasons I really like Photography Matters, is because he posts pretty regularly, almost every week for quite a while now. And recently he's actually started a sub-series called Inspired, where he posts pretty much every day. So, they're shorter videos compared to the main Photography Matters series, but he just talks about whatever's on his mind. And again, you can then pick and choose what you want to listen to because he's got so much out there in his library and he's posting regularly. That's something that I can always refresh, find he's posted something new while I'm working, have a listen, and a lot of it I find very relatable. So I first discovered Ted through his YouTube channel, and then I jumped across to the podcast. And you can tell that he's really passionate about film photography, even though he's only gotten into it in the last couple of years. He's originally a jazz musician, and he's also really into black and white photography, dark, contrasty, moody stuff, and especially printing, which is really cool. So I find a lot of the stuff he talks about relatable, and he's got this uniquely deep voice that the first time you hear it kind of throws you off, but then as you get used to it, I find it actually really easy to listen to, and I think that's a really cool thing, which is going to bring me to my second favorite podcast, which is also by someone I find really easy to listen to, and that's Ibarionex from the Candid Frame. Again, another person who runs a YouTube channel. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of the Candid Frame, but he's actually been doing a podcast for I think 13 years now. It's been 400 plus episodes, so I've no way listened to every single episode the same as I have probably for Ted Vieira's, but Ibarionex just tends to interview a lot of photographers through the podcast, so they're big deep dive discussions. So you can again pick and choose the interviews with the people you're interested in, and if you don't already watch his Candid Frame YouTube channel, definitely check that out because they're really insightful discussion-based videos analyzing and critiquing street photography and techniques and inspiration. So I highly recommend the Candid Frame, both the YouTube channel and the podcast. So Candid Frame, general photography related, especially street photography, inspiration and interviews. And Photography Matters by Ted Vieira, even though it does have a lot of general and inspiration based discussion, he does focus a lot more on film photography. And there's also a few other podcasts I've listened to, especially analog related ones like The Shoot by Matt Day. That was always a really good podcast to listen to. He would also interview some really interesting people. But Matt hasn't been posting for a long time now, so the only reason that's not right up there is because it's not something I currently listen to. I pretty much listen to all of that, and hopefully Matt keeps making videos. I know he plans to someday. And there's also a few other podcasts I've listened to. I've got the On Taking Pictures, which is a long-running podcast by Bill Wadman and Jeffery Saddoris. These guys go into deep, long discussions about general photography-related matters, and they usually choose a subject for each podcast. And also Jeffery Saddoris from On Taking Pictures runs his own podcast called Everything. That's another really cool interview-based one that's worth checking out. And I know there's another one called the Film Photography Podcast, which I've only just added to my list, but I've heard that's pretty good too. And yeah, please guys, feel free to send me your recommendations. Do you listen to photography related podcasts? Do you find it inspiring or useful while you're doing other tasks? And let me know what's out there. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And hopefully you can check out the two I mentioned that are some of my favorites. All right guys, so I'll be catching you in the next episode of Pushing Film, which is going to be about printing. So that's the third part of a 3-part series that I was doing on DIY process of digitizing your own film, color film especially, and turning it into prints being the third part. I've already started to make some prints, and I'll be posting that video probably sometime next week. So see you on the next one.